Let's do it. So thanks so much. Jake Alexander from Action Accounting. Thank you for joining us today for our Automation 101 event. We're going to talk about effectively utilizing AI in your business. I want to introduce our guest speaker over here, Cordes, in just a second. Before we do, always like to start with an agenda, just so everyone knows kind of what to expect of today's event here. We booked this whole thing for an hour. In respect to your time, we do want to bring you as much value as possible in there. So we always start with quick introductions, just a little bit about me and our host here. At the end of the day, this conversation is not about us, right? It's about the information, but I always think it's nice that we're not two perfect strangers up here talking to you guys. So just kind of formally introduce both of us here in just a second. Talk a little bit about some housekeeping and kind of what to expect. Our main section for today is we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. You're hearing it everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's using it, or at least trying to. I wanted to bring in one of the most forward-thinking experts on the subject and have them talk to us today about a little AI 101. So we're going to talk about artificial intelligence, what it is, how to use it, spend some time talking about automation because they're different, right? Artificial intelligence and actually automating things. And then Gord's actually got some really cool demos that he's going to show us today throughout the process. And so he is our special guest. This is Cordes Owen. He's an entrepreneur. He's an AI expert. I'll formally introduce him here in just a sec. And then just talk about real quick, a little housekeeping on the Q&A box. So you probably noticed this isn't like your typical version of Zoom where you can come off of your camera and ask a question. We do that in respect of everyone's time. If anyone's ever been on a Zoom meeting with 20, 30 people and a couple of them trying to start talking all at the same time, we can quickly go off of the rails. So in respect of everyone's time, we don't want that to happen. We want to manage it as best as possible, but we do want to hear from you at the same point. So if you go down to the bottom, there is the little chat box like normal, but that's not going to work. You need to go to the Q&A box, which is a little bit over to the right. You might have to click those three dots there and click Q&A. If a few of you could just type in to there so I know it's working, just type like your first name and where you're joining us from, just so we do a little technology check there just to make sure that's working. Just type in your first name, where you're joining us from, so we know it's working. The last thing we want is to get 30 minutes into this thing and realize nobody could ask us questions or interact with us throughout the whole time. So got Jason from Texas, Jason Inger, long time no see, my friend. Good to see you there. All right, we know that's working. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Introduce myself. If you're joining this, you probably already know who I am, but just to be sure, I'm Jake Alexander from Action Accounting. Company's been around since 2016. There's a team of 11 of us at this point, and we've got four main departments in our business. We have a bookkeeping department where we create financial statements for business owners. More importantly than just creating those financial statements, we actually spend time talking to the business owners about what these numbers mean, helping them understand the finances of what's going on in their business. We also have a tax preparation department where we prepare and file tax returns for businesses themselves and the respective owners of their businesses. Then we have a tax planning department, which is kind of the opposite of our tax prep department. In our tax prep situation, we're working retroactively. So right now we got some deadlines around the corner. September 15th and October 15th are coming up pretty quick. But when we're doing tax prep for previous years, we're kind of limited on some of the strategies and some of the things that we can do to actually save people money. So what we prefer to do is tax planning, which is basically the opposite of that. That's where we're working proactively throughout the course of the year to put strategies in place and help people proactively save as much money on taxes as possible. Then we have our business advisory department, which is our newest department, where we essentially do all three of those things. We take over the books for our clients, we file the taxes for the business and the respective owners of the businesses. We sprinkle in some tax planning techniques and strategies throughout the way, and then we also help them operationally put systems and processes in place so they can grow and scale their business and turn it into what they originally designed it for in the first place. And so that's a little bit about me. Cordes Owen. Cordes, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Jake. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for being here. I could go on and talk about how great you are. You're essentially a lifelong entrepreneur. I know you run multiple businesses. At this point today, the one we're going to highlight and talk about is in the AI and the automation space. But you're considered like a nationally recognized speaker on artificial intelligence and really just the future of business. You help organizations with emerging technologies. And I know here in the Tampa Bay area, you're kind of somewhat of a celebrity in the business community. I know you're on the board of directors for the Tampa Bay Chamber and also the CEO Council. You're also one of the founders of the networking group that we met through, which is Trusted Advisors of Tampa Bay, which is awesome. But really, really glad to have you here. I want to dive in and I want to do this a little bit different. than we normally do instead of pulling up a PowerPoint and putting everybody to sleep. I'd rather kind of run this as more of like a Q&A session if that's good with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. However you wanted
Let's
to
do
go.
it. Yeah, let's jump right in. We're going to do that. I saw we had a couple more people join too. If you are joining us here, make sure you use that Q&A box. If you guys have questions along the way, feel free
And
to drop those.
I would say also, Jake, if anybody has any questions during the conversation, please put them in there and we can stop and address them.
Absolutely, we can address those on the spot, or we do have time built in at the end for it as well. So,
That works.
all right, great. Well, let's dive right into it. I want to spend some time just kind of talking about like the practical side of AI, right? Most business owners I talk to, they got 47 different things going on. They want to know just like how can this stuff actually make my life easier? So what if we start there? Like what should a normal business owner, what should a normal person, where should they even start in your opinion?
Well, maybe I could start by sharing a little bit of my own journey with AI, just to give you context.
Okay.
Um, so I've always been a very technical person. I've made my first website in the mid 90s when I was a college student. Um, uh, and have a lot of experience building databases and interactive applications and doing branding and all of those things and building a team to do all those things. And even as far as 10 years or so ago, we started working with AI. And we were doing things that are more traditionally known as machine learning. And where we were specifically doing it, I can think of a couple projects that are good examples. And one of them was we were taking transcripts from phone calls that were coming into one of our national clients, and they wanted a human to answer the phone right away because they knew that that was really important to getting help quickly. However, they also still wanted to know, like, how many of these calls were service calls, how many of these calls were sales calls, and repair calls, all these different classifiers. So we were able to use machine learning to then take those transcripts and train an AI engine to then bucket those calls. And it would do it and it would give us a little, it would say, well, we think 80% this is a sales call. It would give us those numbers. Another project we did was we used Google's Auto ML platform to classify, to basically do machine learning and predictive analysis on subprime automotive loans from buy here, pay here lots. And so we took about $430 million worth of loan records, and we were able to tell things like, what are the odds that this loan is going to default? Because the people
Okay.
that were making those loans wanted to be able to understand and whether or not they wanted to buy those loans in the future. And so that is the way that AI has been for going back 30 years. It's been progressing, but when I saw this new version of AI about 4 years ago, for the first time, I think ChatGPT was 2 weeks old or something like that, had just been released. And I could see that it was doing some level of reasoning and actual conversational. It was fulfilling the promise of like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where they were asking it, like, where's the next golden ticket? It was starting
Yeah.
to fulfill that promise. And so I was on vacation at the time and I had just gotten, a few minutes to myself and was catching up on things. And before I'd gone on vacation, one of my team members had said, hey, that website where it's a really technical subject. We've been having a hard time finding a writer to write the content for it. I used ChatGPT and it did an amazing job. And this was, the 3.5. It was like the first version that a lot of us saw.
Yep.
And and so I pulled it up, and I never like to use the free model of anything, to be honest, like, because they're just collecting your data or whatnot. I'd rather pay for it and get full access. So I paid for it. And I was just blown away by what it could do. And so I started putting it through tests. I was asking it questions about marketing. I was asking it questions about websites and advertising. And it was doing a really great job when I compare if I were to go talk to one of my team members who'd been doing this for 5 or 10 years. It was doing just as good as those people in a lot of ways. Some ways it was awful, but a lot of ways it was really surprising. So on Monday, when I got back to the office, I have, 35 employees. I said every single person is going to sign up for the pro version of ChatGPT. It cost me $20 a head. And I started creating a culture of AI innovation and the group knowing that they would be rewarded for finding ways to use AI in a more constructive way, for automating tasks, for being more productive, for enhancing the quality of the answers we were working with and analyzing research and whatnot or like campaign reports. So I immediately tried to create an AI culture, and then we started building out an AI department where we would focus on doing AI integrations for people. So if we go back to your question, which is like, okay, well, how do we even get started? Well,
Yeah.
most people get started by just using AI like a chat, like a search engine. There's a little box there. You type in looking for this, that, or the other thing, and it can start to do some research, and it's more or less an answer engine at that point. What we were trying to do is figure out ways that we could take some of that reasoning and build it into workflows, whether we were using an automation tool like Zapier or Make or N8N. There's other tools out there, and I don't want to make people go cross-eyed with some of the names of these tools, but like we knew that the value was really there, not just in the answer engine functionality. And so, but I would tell you that that is the easiest way to get started is go ahead and put your credit card in and pay for the pro version. It's going to cost about $20 because if you don't and you try to use it, it's going to be about as smart as an enthusiastic high schooler on the free version. And you're going to be limited by, how much it can do. If you put your credit card in, you'll have full access to, you may not have a lot of you might not have like unlimited amount of it, but you'll get access to like the full intelligence. And I would encourage you to just try. Like once you have, I know one of the things we're going to talk about today is security, but once you have like the paid version, by default, there's a toggle in there that says share my information with others, or let me train, not with others, but share my information with the model so that way, we can get better at this. What they're basically saying is we want to be able to use your data to train our model. And they don't care about running your company, they could care less. But where that
Yep.
manifests itself is down the road, if somebody's asking a question, let's say you make a certain widget and your competitor's like, I wonder what the sales are for that company. That's, they're talking about your business. There's a chance that if you're using the free version, that ChatGPT or whatever other model you're using is going to guess very, very accurately about your revenue or about, things about your business. So I would say really encourage you to get started and just experiment. And one other tip while we're on this topic is, and I get it with my team all the time, I'll ask them, it's like, well, did you try, use AI for that? And they'll say, well, yeah, I did it, like 6 months ago. And I'm like, well, the things are improving all the time.
Probably night and day difference
Really,
between
like
6 months
twice a
ago. Yeah.
month, it seems like a new version's coming out. So you want to try again because there's a chance that it could work, and do a much better job.
Nice. That was kind of one of my questions is like, what's one of the mistakes you see people doing when they're first using it? But that's kind of just using it as like a glorified Google is what I'm hearing from you. You want to push it a
Yeah,
step further than that, right?
yeah, like ask it to help you make decisions. If you're negotiating something, put in the context of your negotiations. Ask it to review an agreement for you. Like we get on NDAs all the time, I always ask it. It's like, hey, should I sign this NDA? And it says, no, you should not, because it's saying 5 years and it's reasonable as two. And so like I'll send a note back to the person that sent it to me and be like, hey man, like I'm ready to sign this if we can change the term from 5 to 2. And it's like, okay, cool. You know,
Nice.
um, but I would definitely encourage you. One way I would caution you not to use it, don't let it do all your writing for you.
Yeah,
Because
don't
it's
just copy and paste and send that back to whoever it
yeah,
is you're negotiating with, right?
that well, I'm not just talking about negotiating, but just in general, like you can tell when you've received an AI generated email,
100%, right?
and it comes across very inauthentic. And so at a minimum, you want to ask it to humanize any copy it writes for you.
Okay.
So that way it can say it in your voice. You can even train the tools. Like one of the demos I could do for you today is I could show you how to make something called a GPT, and that's done inside of ChatGPT, where you can upload like, 20 different emails that you've written or, Word documents or presentations you've done. And so what it'll do is that becomes like a filter. So that way when you interface or you ask ChatGPT to do some writing in your voice, it can use that pattern matching of how you normally write about things to then create some outputs that will sound a lot more like I said it versus whatever the voice is that comes out of Claude or ChatGPT or Grok or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to see that as a demo. Sounds really cool. Before we get there, let me ask you like, so you kind of started hinting to it, but I'd like to dive into it a little more of like, how do you get better answers from the AI? One of the things we hear from our clients is like, I tried it and it didn't really give me what I needed, or it was kind of a weird answer. So then they sort of give up or go in a different direction. Like, what are some of the steps, or maybe talk to us a little bit about like prompting,
Yeah.
iteration, like those sort of things, you know?
Well, when these models first came out, they were talking, you may have heard the term prompt engineer, and that's evolved into context engineer. So
Okay.
that is exactly what you need to do. You need to give these engines a lot more information about the context of what you're trying to do. Like, for example, if you went and here, I'm going to give you a tool that you can use to get really good at prompting or telling, at getting results out of these engines. So if you were to open up Grok, ChatGPT, whatever, and say, hey, create an image of this, like make this image and, there's a this over on this side of the image and whatever. If you were to just say, start and to say, create this image for me, then what it'll happen is it will do its best and it'll probably not do a great job. But instead of doing that directly, do this. Ask it to create a prompt that you can use to create that image.
Ah,
And then what it'll do is it'll output 2 or 3 paragraphs of context and it'll explain the lighting, the lens that was used, on the camera, like what point of view from above, what. And so then you can look at that prompt. That's a lot more context and you can tweak it, feed that in the machine, and I guarantee you're going to get a lot better, faster results.
I like that. That sounds like it makes sense, definitely. So what about, can you give us an example of like a bad prompt? So something you shouldn't put in there or you shouldn't say that's just, it's going to basically be like the opposite of that?
Well, I can tell you that these models, especially the frontier models that we're used to using, like Claude and ChatGPT, mostly Claude, they have got guardrails on the engines. So, like one place where that really is a problem is, for example, we build websites for people, we build custom software for people. Well, one of the things I really care about is making sure that um, it's secure. Well, so if I ask one of these models to inspect my code to look for vulnerabilities or to help me make sure that it's safe and secure and all of that, Claude will revert into from like Fable 5, which is their latest, most powerful model, into Opus 4.8 because the Fable model, which is basically just a renamed and nerfed version of Mythos, will it was really good at hacking a lot of systems that we've been using for a long, long time. When Claude first trained Mythos, it was a 2 trillion or sorry, 10 trillion parameter model. And that's the biggest one that has been created so far. It was able to do things like hack Linux, the Linux operating system, which is the most secure operating system in the world,
Oh,
and it
wow.
found like I want to say 20 what we call 0-day exploits. And so they were able to use Mythos to then pressure test all of these different systems, that like credit card terminals, all these different things that we rely on to be very secure. So if you're asking anything about cybersecurity, to answer your question, um, if you ask it with Fable 5, it's going to nerf itself and it's not going to be very helpful. So make sure when you're asking those things, prompt it in a way that you're always talking to the more noble objectives of what you're trying to do. Like, don't come across in any kind of nefarious way, because then it will say, well, you really shouldn't do that, so I'm not even going to help you.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
appeal to the more noble objectives of what you're trying to do in your
The
content.
helpful nature of the AI in general, right?
That's right. And if you
Let's
give it more context, like for example, it might help me look through the vulnerabilities of a website because it over time it begins to learn that I'm actually a good on the white hat. It actually can see that my previous conversations had to do with things related to building software and applications. It knows that we're not trying to hack anything.
we're trying to help to learn how to make it better, not how to
Right.
destroy it or be destructive or whatnot too.
That's right.
Very, it's very interesting. Let's kind of talk about like time, right? Like, let's say I didn't, and maybe this is a good segue into demoing the software you were talking about here too. But if my goal was to get like 5 hours of my life back every week or every month, talk to us a little bit about, because I know there's differences. I started using Claude more than ChatGPT because you are the one who showed it to me and got me to download it and taught me a little bit about it. Where so actually go on your computer and do things compared to
Right.
ChatGPT is more just like giving information and giving answers. Like talk to us a little bit about that of sending an
Right. So
email or
what you're talking,
scheduling.
yeah, sure. So what you're talking about is Claude Cowork. And so Claude Cowork was one of the first AI tools that you could actually run the software on your computer. It's not running the actual large language model on your computer, but what it's doing is because it's an application on your computer, it has different levels of access to your computer than being in your browser. And so what you can do is you can open up Claude Cowork and you could say something like, let's say like pick somebody's business that's on this call, Jake, like just the industry.
Say financial services.
All right. So I could say something like every day I would like you to do a research project that looks for any new laws or regulations as it relates to financial services, and then classify that research based off of, the category like tax prep, investing, those types of things. And so then what would happen, and then you could tell it like, I want it to, and then put those results in a Google Drive for me every single day as a Word
Okay.
doc. And then every single day it can prep those things. Like I have, and that's one way you can do it. I also have like this version of it. So we have um let's see if he I'm gonna show you guys something. When when you get deeper into it and you like I'll give you a really advanced example, but like I have a platform that runs one of our businesses that's a steel fabrication business. And so what I did is I created a phone system so I could just call the business. I'm going to put myself on speaker here, and it should say hello in just a second.
And I'm ready to help. What's your PIN?
2423.
Thanks, Cordes. What can I do for you?
Yeah, what can you help me with today?
Good evening. 3 overdue action items, 148 open opportunities. I can also help with inventory, scheduling meetings, projects, and shipments.
How much inventory do we have in stock?
We have 44 steel coils totaling 113,955 pounds and various consumables like truss bolts, rivets, and
So anyhow, I can call that phone number on my way into the office or when I have 5 minutes instead of opening a computer, and I can actually do things like if I just met somebody, I can create a new contact just talking to it. I can, change the schedule of our production or something. So we've enabled like all the functionality of how our factory runs through this voice agent here.
Awesome. And so that's connected with your CRM or accounting software or multiple softwares behind the scenes, I'm assuming.
That's exactly right.
Very cool. I like that. If you want to dig into, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty impressive. If you want to dig into demoing some of what you were talking about
Yeah,
of actually
sure.
making a
So,
GPT, just real quick
totally,
before you,
Jake.
yeah, just real quick. We had a couple more people join, so just want to make sure if anybody does have any questions, pop them in that Q&A box down there on the bottom, and we'll get Cordes to answer those on the spot. But yeah, if you want to take over the screen and kind of give us a little demo real quick, I think that'd be great.
Well, so like your question had to do with how could we save some time. So like this was one example of how I could save time. For that same exact business. And one of the things, one of the very first integration projects that we had where we were early in the early days of our AI department, we were just asking our other business owners we knew, it's like, hey, give us something, like tell us, like, is there anything that you would like for people to get better at? So one of the people we talked to was a recruiting company, and they said, well, gosh, I mean, it'd be really great if like the people that I send to my clients were better at interviewing. And so what we did was we knew that the voice technology wasn't there yet. It wasn't very good, but we knew it probably would be. And so we started building this platform called Interviews. And just to stay on the steel example, we built out an entire platform called Interviews. And if you look right here, hang on one second, I'm gonna go here. Uh, so this is the interviews.com. It's spelled Intervuse. And this is a full SaaS software platform that's agentically powered. And once you log in, like I log into my account right here, I can go into a job listing. So if this is a full applicant tracking system, and I can pull up a job listing I had. So if I go here, this was for an operations specialist in my warehouse. And during the setup process for this job, I just paste my job description into the system. And then what it does is it reads through that job description. And there's a few other criteria in here, like they need to be located within 25 miles. And then it ranks all the different things that this person needs to do inside the system. Well, we imported all of our candidates from Indeed, and you can import them, bulk upload them. You can also just put a link to our platform in your Indeed listing. And then what will happen is it'll actually rank. So I could say I want to rank all these people by their resume score. So it takes a look at that, what's important to you, and then it goes one by one through the listing, and it can give you the scores of these people. So what I did was is I took all of our top people that were 80% or better in their resume scoring, and then I invited them all to do a voice interview. Well, we had a couple of people do very well. And so you can see this particular person right here. They scored
Are you,
a,
or I can see the screen, but it's not moving or
oh,
reflecting. Are you trying to, it
I
was
was
kind of,
sharing the I was sharing the wrong screen. So
sorry
here we
about
go.
that. Oh,
Yeah,
there we
so
go.
I was so anyhow, if you look here, you can see this particular person, and I can step back a step so you can see what I was looking at. So you can
There
see
we
here,
go.
here's
Yep.
all the
And actually,
resume. Can you see it now?
yes, that's perfect. So
Right. So you can see here's all of the resume score, and it shows you the proximity to our warehouse. And then you can see right here that this person completed the voice interview. We can go back into this person. Then we can see for every single requirement that we had in our job description, you can see how they performed with evidence. And this is really important because it gives you full backup, and we archive it for you so that way you have it for years in case you ever need this information about on a job requirement per job requirement level what they passed and what they did not pass. So for example, we ask about their experience working with steel. Well, they didn't mention it in their resume, but when we actually did the interview, they did. And there's their literal quote right there of what they said during the interview. And so this gives you a full backup. And then we have the breakdown of the interview. So we record it. It shows you what their personality score looked like in terms of their soft skills. And
Oh,
so
wow.
what I've been able to do is I started with 100 and I think it was 85 candidates. And here, if I go back here, 185 candidates, 11 of them were good enough based off of the resume. And then I had two of them do phone screenings, and one of them, they technically were the guy that didn't pass was like a 79 out of 80. So I would still like manually move him on to the next level. But now I've gone from 185 to my top two candidates in like without any work at all on my part. And I'm super confident that those are my best candidates. And I'll just do my actual human interview with those two people. And so
Awesome.
when you calculate the time that it takes to go through that process in great detail with all 185 so
Yeah.
they don't miss the diamond in the rough. I mean, that would be a lot of time savings.
That's crazy. We do have a question here. So David asked, he said, can he use this to help acquire leads, like more for lead generation, for life insurance, annuities, security products, and that sort of stuff? So I guess could you use the same type software for lead gen?
Yeah, you can. It especially helps when you're qualifying people. So there are obviously there's limitations to the kind of research you can do about somebody during a hiring process. So like specifically this tool, but I'm going to come off of share so we don't get distracted by this. I assume
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
asking about general AI research.
Assuming
I
so,
assume
yeah. Or
I
just
assume
acquiring
so.
leads through AI. Yep.
That's right. So I would say that what I would do if I were doing that type of B2B um, uh, business, I would probably start with a list and then have AI create a spreadsheet and do research and say, hey, loop through my spreadsheet from the beginning to the end and see what information you can find about these people to help understand how qualified they are in terms of the exact ideal customer profile that I want. So what AI can do is they could see, well, how many businesses do they own? About how much revenue do those businesses produce? Um, it can research whether or not the person is highly regarded, whether they have, you can get a good understanding of how much wealth or capacity someone has very easily. And so it could loop through that whole list. And it might be able to tell you that, like, 50% of the people in your original list, which could have come from Zoom Info or Seamless.ai or whatever, one of those services, might not be worth the time. Or it could say, hey, we think you gave me this person, but it looks to me like they have a new job. They're over here. And, here's the contact information for that business. And then it can fill out your spreadsheet and then you've got your call list.
You got your lead list right there, huh?
Exactly.
Nice. Let's switch gears a little bit. That was really cool. Thank you for showing us that. Talk about the difference between AI and automation because I think a lot of times they get used synonymously, but they're not, right? They're two totally different things.
Sure. So automation's been around for a really long time, and it's how you can take very explicitly defined steps in a process and then make them go quicker. So it could be things like routing of communications. It's like, hey, when I finish my step and I say complete, it automatically goes to somebody else's inbox, things like that. With this new version of AI, you can create things called agents. And an agent can be created and be trained on a particular specialty. So it might be making a judgment. Like for example, in the example we just talked about qualifying leads, you might create an agent, like don't just ask generic chat GPT to qualify the the person and figure out whether they'd be a good prospect. Do this. Say, hey, ChatGPT, I want to create an agent that is excellent at qualifying people that would be a good fit for customers of mine. This is the role. Ask me any questions you might need. And it would say, okay, well, here's what I think you ought to do, blah, blah. So it's kind of getting in that mode. And then you go, um, okay. write me a prompt that creates that agent, and specifically make sure it does, looks and sees any businesses they have, any, property records, blah, 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 blah. And also, so it does the qualification the way that you want. That's like a defined goal of how it's supposed to get there, or a process and a goal. And then it'll basically give you the steps to save it as an agent. And in ChatGPT, those are called GPTs. In Claude Cowork, they're called different things. In like Google Gemini, they're called gems. Like they all have their own nomenclature for it. And even in like Grok just came out with a tool called Grokbot. And the whole time, all you're doing is just creating agents, which are specialists in particular role. And so this new type of automation, it can do things like, number one, you could have Claude Cowork like schedule things for you. It could say, hey, look at my HubSpot, and then I want you to see what kind of tasks are outstanding, and then notify me, that I need to do those tasks. If there's any of those notifications, you can include like a pre-answer based off of data that you have in my HubSpot. Go ahead and give me some copy or whatever, and make sure you write it in my voice. And so basically you're able to give it more context. Like think about agents like an intern, like a really smart intern.
And can you show us, is that what you were saying? If you could share your screen and actually walk us through how to set up one of these GPTs?
Sure. So I haven't done it yet in the native version here, but let's go into the web version of ChatGPT.
Okay.
Let's see here.
We got a question while you're pulling that up. Liam asks, for small businesses that don't have technical experience building software, so basically all of us except for you, right? Cordes.
Yeah.
How should they go about automating workflows that are specific to the business? So
Well,
people with no experience, how do we learn this stuff and be able to actually put it into practice?
So the most powerful thing you can do is, and I could show you a slide I have in one of our presentations, but one of the most powerful things you can do is just start, number one, with a paid version of the platform you're using, so you have full power, and then give it your goal. I own a florist, okay? And I am looking to utilize AI more in my business to help with my business. What are some ways you could say, what are some ways I could do that? And then it can spit out some ideas for you. You could also, what's really important to this whole thing is the platforms you're using. So, for example, the more access to your QuickBooks, to your HubSpot, to your WordPress website, to all of the different things. And once you paid for this system, it's more secure. So like you can feel comfortable doing these things.
More privacy. You're not just allowing all your stuff to go out into the world.
So you can use it in the really powerful brainstorming tools. So give it like the bare bones context of who you are and what kind of a business you're running or what you're doing. And because there's hundreds of other businesses like yours where people have probably asked these types of questions in chat forums for the last 25 years on the web, and all these tools are trained on that type of text. And so then it can give you, but there's one acronym. If there's one acronym that I want everybody to remember on this call, it's the acronym M as in Mary, C as in Charlie, P as in Paul, MCP. And so what that is like, you may have heard of something called an API connection. It's a way for machines to talk to machines. So when you're connecting to HubSpot, for example, Jake, you're not actually connecting to the API. What you're probably connecting to is the MCP for HubSpot. And what that is it's a translation layer for one agent to talk to the other agent and to give you context. When I called my phone number where I had an agent on the other line, I was actually using an MCP because I'm not giving it explicit commands on what I want it to do. That's how APIs work. They're very explicit and there's only certain parameters. MCP is more flexible and it's an agent interface for your business. And so the way if you have a very small business and you want to try to leverage the power of these tools, you would start with something like Claude Cowork in the middle. And then what you would do is you would tell Claude, here's all the platforms that I use. I have a WordPress website, I have HubSpot, I have Salesforce, I have QuickBooks, I have Quicken, I have whatever it is that I have, right? How many of these have MCP servers?
Okay.
And then it would tell you how many have them. And then what you would do is you would immediately go and connect your Claude Cowork to all of the available MCP servers. And if it didn't have MCP, it might have an API, in which case you could tell Claude Code, which is just a slightly different version of the paid version of Claude, and it could build you an MCP to interface with that API.
What
And
does
so,
MCP stand for? Sorry.
Model Control Protocol.
Got it.
So that's why I didn't say that, because it's a nerdy term that just confuses you. But anyhow, it's the reason you'd want that is because if you've connected your Claude Cowork to all those MCPs, then what it'll do is I could just talk to it and say, hey, like for example, I have it connected to my project management software, and I could share my screen. I could say, what are we working on today? What are the latest tasks that have been completed across the whole company in Asana? And it can go, oh, well, here's the tasks, and Erica spent 10 hours on this, and blah, 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 blah. I could just start having conversations with it about my project management system and how
Okay.
we're working within it.
It's incredible. So let's say small company between 5 and 10 employees. Is there processes they should start with? Like where would
Sure.
they begin with all this kind of stuff, you know?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would make sure you sign up for the corporate version, because one of the words I haven't brought up yet is governance. It's really important as the business owner or the executives in control to have proper governance, because then you might get
Okay.
stuck where people have access to information they shouldn't have access to,
Got
or
it.
they win the lottery and leave the company, or they get, or whatever it is, and you need to have control. So, and the other thing is too, you probably also want to monitor, and especially in today's day and age, which employees are actually buying into this new version of doing business more than
Yeah.
others, right? So when you have the corporate version of the tool where you can sign up sub users, anything that they do, let's say you have some rock star intern come in and intern for the summer, and they figured out how to do all kinds of cool reporting or whatnot using AI in your business. Well, guess what? They're about to go back to school, and how are they supposed to give you that work? Well, if it's a corporate version, you haven't lost anything. You've got it in your
Yeah.
account, even though it was his user. If he's just doing it on his version of ChatGPT, it's like good luck.
Oh, yeah.
You have to wire the whole thing back up again. And so that would be the first thing, is I would start with buying the corporate version of the tool. And you can use ChatGPT Codex, Claude Cowork, Grok bots. Like there's a lot of great ones out there. But I would stick to the frontier. So Grok, Claude, ChatGPT, and I'm forgetting one really, Gemini. Gemini is a really big one. So those four are your frontier models. And then there's other ways you can harness some of these things too through some other tools, and you can even get some open source. But I would, for to be safe and to have the best experience, I would stick to those four. And right
Nice.
now, three that are the leading is Claude, ChatGPT, and then Grok is quickly catching up.
Okay.
So that's the first thing I would do. And then maybe take a page out of my book, encourage people to find new ways to use it within the business, and give them a gift card if they've figured out how to do something better.
Yeah.
Um, the fear has been that AI is going to replace people, right? And people get really nervous about that. And I'm nervous. I'm also nervous about it. And I think for people that are like copywriters, yeah, like 90% of the copywriters are probably not going to be able to make a living like they once did. The 10 best ones
Okay.
will probably be doing 10 times the work and doing the best work they've ever done in their lives, you know?
Okay.
And
And that
so
is not to derail you, but that's because it's primarily a text-based function, which is highly replicable from these all new softwares, right?
that's right. I mean, it's like it's the whole horse buggy thing. The people who were making the horseshoes, like that was that was very dependent on the old way of transportation, right? And so but the people who switched and started making tires after horseshoes, like
Gotcha.
they did great. So you really have to have um, some courage to get in there and try some things, because for me that's the best way to learn. To bump around in there and see what you can tell it can do. And um, but uh, but after you've connected everybody with the corporate account, and you create the culture, I think you can share like on your company meetings, like the wins, you know,
Hmm.
and celebrate those people and make sure that they're rewarded for doing higher quality
Experimenting.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right,
encouraging them to, I almost think there's in some, I want to kind of talk about like customer service here in a minute. It kind of tails into that, but I think some people are almost afraid to let their clients or their boss or their employees know they're using it, where you're saying it should be the opposite. Like everybody
right.
knows we're using it. We need to celebrate it and experiment with it and understand it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you use it the right way, you're way more productive. You you can eliminate some of the mundane, repetitive tasks. Um, you shouldn't just not check on the result that it's giving you. Like you need to know. It's kind of like when we were learning math in school, like we had to show our work. You still need to double check the output that it's giving you because I still see it make
Yeah.
math mistakes and things like that all the time. I tried to have it read some architectural plans yesterday, three or four of the models. They did a horrible job, but they got better because at least they gave me a 3D model of what they thought it was,
Yeah.
where in the past, like they just got confused totally. So we're getting there, but um, anyhow, I'm off track, but
No, you're
yeah,
good.
I mean,
Let- I think that was great. Let's do this. We got about 10 minutes left here. If anyone has any questions, pop them down in the Q&A. We'll make sure we answer those. If not, I can just keep asking you questions. I'm
well, the customer service one was a good one. So here, I'll give you guys another demo of a way that we've used AI for customer
Yeah.
service.
And if I could just kind of preface it too, I think, this whole world of AI is taking over. You said it earlier, like it's very easy to spot an AI written response. But from my research, customer service positions is kind of what they're talking about becoming automated and maybe interrupted from all this software and stuff too. So I wanted to pick your brain on that of what does it look like and how does that work, you know?
Sure. So the good thing, if you depends on how you're doing customer service. If you are, like, for example, an avid, robust user of a platform that is like Zendesk or HubSpot, where you're using the customer service modules, or like maybe you're a home service company and people submit questions and tickets and things like that. You might even have documentation around the emails that went back and forth between those customer service tickets. Well, if you have that, you can potentially offload a lot of customer service to an AI model. A personal example for me, um, that's just very basic, and we all are impacted by this, is I had a vehicle, a company vehicle I need to get some service done to, like an oil change. And so my normal process is I pick up the phone and I go to the website, I get the customer service phone number, I call it, I wait on hold forever. When I finally get a hold of somebody, they're out to lunch, or when I finally talk to them, they tell me it's going to be 10 days before I can come in and get a stinking oil change. And so I was just like, man, this is, and they of course encouraged me to fill out their little contact form, which I never want to do because it's like, when are they going to get back to me? Well, delightfully, I called them and instantly the phone was answered by an AI bot. And I'm like, okay, I know this is an AI bot. This is going to be interesting. Let's see how this goes. And it says, well, how can I help you? And I said, well, I'd like to bring in my Sprinter for an oil change. It's like, okay, well, we've got tomorrow at 1 o'clock, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, or Thursday at, 8 o'clock. Will any of those times work for you? And I was like, well, tomorrow at 1 o'clock works great. Okay, you're booked. Is your phone number, 813-277-4202, the best number to reach you at? Yes, it is. Okay, well, we'll see you then. Your service advisor will be Fred. And it's like, I'll do that all day long. I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
just
that was
was
great.
a better experience. It was faster, it was higher quality. I have a southern twang to my accent, so sometimes people don't understand me, and so like that was a much better thing. And so uh, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of training with agents with customer service. One of the very first projects we did was we had an equipment reseller, and they sold about 200 different types of equipment all over the country, and they had technical support documentation. They had all their customer service tickets. And so we trained an agent to where when an email came in, a trouble ticket came in, it would immediately see where the email address came from. It would look in the CRM to see if we knew what that person had bought in the past. Then it would say, okay, we've got these three machines that it could be about. We read the email. Oh, it's definitely about machine number one. It then goes to the technical support documentation. It goes to all the historical tickets about that machine. It pre-answers that the text of the customer service support. But instead of just turn around and sending it directly to the customer who reached out, what it then did is it put it in a queue for the human customer service agents. And
Uh,
the question was already like had links to the user manual and what page it was on and what it probably most likely was. And so now the customer service agent could just like tweak a couple things and hit send. And now it was coming from that human, not being answered by an AI. And they saw like triple the productivity. The customer service went way up because now people are waiting only, less than an hour for all their responses versus like a 2-day turnaround time. Um,
awesome.
so anyhow, that actually led to this tool that I have up right here. So along the way, we've built a couple tools. This is interviews was one of them. This next one here is page chat. And this is a way that you can add voice, customer service, and concierge to any website. And so I'll just demonstrate it for you real quick. Um, I'm going to show you how this works.
Hi, I'm Paige. How can I help you?
Hey, Paige, uh, like to know, can I use page chat for customer service?
Definitely. Page Chat can learn your site to answer questions automatically, and we can integrate with support tools if you need to open tickets. What kind of customer service tasks are you thinking about?
Anyhow, could y'all hear that?
Yeah, yeah, that was cool.
And so basically, this thing can not only help talk to you, but it can also navigate around the website. Like if I kept going, here, I'll tell you one more time.
Hi, I'm Paige. How can I help you?
Hi, Paige. I was curious about customer service, but I also wanted to know your pricing.
Let me check on that for you. Sorry about that. I'm having a little trouble looking that up right now. But generally, pricing starts at $99 a month, and you can see all four plans on our pricing page. Were you asking about how Page Chat handles customer service for your visitors, or how you get support from us? I can also connect you with our team at info@pagechat.com.
Do you have a pricing list?
One moment while I get those details. I'm having a little trouble looking that up right now, but
Here, let me show you on Dogs Inc. This is a better example. This is a really big nonprofit in the Tampa Bay area. Used to be called Southeastern Guide Dogs. But what I was going to show you is it can navigate you around the website. And this is a really good example
Yeah.
because we're seeing impaired people.
I'm Kate. You can ask me anything about Dogs Inc.
Hi, Kate. How do I get involved?
Volunteering with Dogs Inc. sounds amazing. Would you like me to take you to the page with more details about different ways to get involved?
Yes. So now I'm actually on the page. So you can see it actually is a concierge. It can take you around a whole website. So if you're selling stuff online, it could help navigate, make recommendations of which products to put in your cart. It could probably put cart stuff in your cart for you. It can add you to the newsletter and all those things. So
Very cool.
I
No,
hope
I
that
love it.
answers
Thank
your
you so
question.
much. Yeah, we got a couple more minutes here. If anybody does have any questions, pop them in there. We'll make sure we answer them. Cords, how can people get a hold of you? So if they have questions, they want to learn more, they're interested in your services or want help with this stuff, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure. So I can type it in the chat here, but you can reach me on my cell phone number at 813-277-4202. Let me see if it allows me to say for everyone. It doesn't. It just looks like it's going to send it to us. But my phone number again is 813-277-4202. I can be reached through our website at bakemorepies.com. You can email me at cords, that's spelled Cordes, at bakemorepies.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, but happy to answer any additional questions you might have or just talk through anything. Um, you know, that's what we love to do. We just love to help people solve their problems.
Yeah, this has been great. I was able to get that in the chat for everyone to see it. So you should have Cord's contact information if you want any help with this stuff. If anybody has any questions, type those in there. While we're waiting for that, Cords, tell us the story how you came up with the name Bake More Pies. Because when I first heard that, I thought you guys were a bakery, or I didn't think you were a digital automation and AI tech company. But tell us where you came up with that.
Yeah, so it was back in the early days when we were mainly just a digital marketing agency. And my business partner and I at the time had just named our agency Watson and Melvin, which is our first names. And we knew we were always going to try to find something that was more scalable, that didn't rely on either one of us to be around. Since we named, since we started the company, it's now just Watson. Melvin's no longer involved. I bought him out, but for example, so we were having a conversation about a customer who was complaining about the cost of something, and I mean, and it was not even that expensive, and we were going to create something for them that they were going to make $1 million. It was like $3,000 for something they were going to use, and make $1 million or something, um, and he was just like, man, it just feels like they're negotiating for sport. And he goes, if we are making any money at all, if we're making any profit at all, like we have to make a profit to survive as a business. If we're making any profit at all, they feel like they're losing. Like that's a scarcity mindset. That's people who are thinking about um, slicing up, dividing up the pie. Like we need to be about abundance. We need to be about baking more pies. He's like, when I just want to work with people that have a supply side mindset. I like to just go in the kitchen and bake more pies. And I said, Trey, I think you just named our agency. And he said, well, what did I say? And I was like, bake more pies. We could call ourselves Bake More Pies. So that's how we got the name.
Love that. Love that story. Thank you so much, Cords. I really appreciate it. I got a ton of notes here. I learned a bunch of stuff. Hopefully, everyone who tuned in or is watching this afterwards did too. If you need to get a hold of Cords, you can go to his website, bakemorepies.com. You can email him directly at cords@bakemorepies.com. I'm Jake Alexander from Action Accounting. Thanks so much. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Thanks, Jake.
Have a good day, Cords. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you soon.